Hi there, welcome to the archives. So this one, I just wanted to quickly share a segment from Black and Blues. I already shared this by Imani Perry, Black and Blues, how a color tells a story of my people. And so this one, I was just reading about a revolutionary. I talked about Nanny, for those who don't know, how spirituality was an integral part of the slave revolts across the Americas. So it says, for example, in Jamaica, a woman named Nanny led a Maroon colony of escaped Africans up in the Blue Mountains. She is said to have practiced Obeah, a syncretic African religion. In Virginia, insurrectionist leader Nat Turner was led by divine vision and served as a preacher. And in Saint-Domingue, how you say it? Saint-Domingue? Dutty Boukman, a voodoo priest, would be a spiritual and political leader of the revolt. So Boukman had been captured in Africa and was first enslaved in Jamaica before arriving in Saint-Domingue, which is modern-day Haiti. It is said where he attended a historic voodoo ceremony at Bois Cayman, I guess the English would pronounce it, Alligator Forest, under the cover of night. As the story goes, in August of 1791, worshippers in these woods made a pact with Erzulie Dantor. Remember we did Erzulie in the 50 goddesses, spirits, and saints. She was a deity of the voodoo pantheon who dresses in blue. She would usher them through liberation in exchange for devotion. The pact was sealed with a dance of a local priestess named Cecile Fatiman, and it promised them freedom. So Boukman stepped into history as a spiritual leader of the enslaved people. It says his proclamation is a right to emancipation spread quickly, fomenting and sustaining revolt. French forces, eager to squash the rebellion, killed Dutty Boukman in short order. In November, they displayed his chopped off head on a stake, but rather than strike fear, as they'd hoped, it seemed to deepen the resolve for the revolutionaries. And that is unsurprising. If a people believed that fighting for freedom is divinely ordained, death can't snuff it out. It goes on to talk about a husband and wife, loas, Agwe and Sirene. They were invoked in the revolution, and both were traditional colors were blue. The Africans who were killed by the French in the fight for freedom were believed to be carried by Agwe through the blue waters of life after death in Guinea, which was a 19th century term for Africa in Saint-Domingue. But I wanted to also highlight the woman that trained Jean-Jacques Dessalines in Haiti. And so he was a revolutionary Haitian leader. But it says, less well known is a woman who trained him as a warrior. She was known as both Victoria Montou and Abdaraya Toya. Here we will call her Toya. This is from page 45. It says Toya was a midwife and a military woman. She had been a soldier in the West African Kingdom of Dahomey before being captured and brought across the water into slavery. Her rank in Dahomey is not known, but she certainly wore blue. It goes on to talk about the Dahomey hunters, what the uniforms were: blue shorts, brown blouses. Rifle women wore blue blouses and white and blue shorts. They carried rifles as well as banana leaf belts filled with cartridges. They were experts in close combat. They carried swords and spears. The archers wore blue tunics and white skull caps decorated with blue caimans. And once they shot with poison arrows. And then once they made hit the target, they would carry the wounded individual or dead individual either to burial or slavery. And so in Saint-Domingue, Toya, she maintained her military prowess, and a feature of her previous blue-toned life, which was an indigo knife, was always strapped around her waistband. And so Jean-Jacques called her ma tante, or auntie. And basically she was the one that trained his men when he took place as commander during the revolution. She also took up arms as well, is what it says here. When the revolution was victorious, she was granted the honorific Duchess by the leaders and lived in Jean-Jacques Dessalines' house. And his, basically she was revered as an aunt. She had the necessary courage and the skill that helped with the Haitian Revolution. She died in 1805, and she was given a state funeral, complete with a procession of sergeants at her pallbearers. And so, as I'm reading this right now during Women's History Month, I'm thinking about women we often are not told about, including those who fought for so many different revolts and revolutions that freed Black people all over the Americas, in the quote-unquote New World. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share. It was just an excerpt from Black and Blues, How Color Tells the Story of My People. So until next time, in solidarity.